As best as we're able to, it's important to have silence in our lives. Although the silence that we just had was very, very brief given our time's constraint, it's good to be silent for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, very intentional, in front of your icon corner, maybe in a small space in your house devoted to prayer, to be silent, mesihia, with peace, with a little of, as we have in the Orthodox tradition, hesychasm. This is not exactly what hesychasm is, but just try to be as silent as possible. Why? Because all of the works that God has wrought for our salvation, all of the works that God has done for us and for our salvation, have been done in silence. All of this is expressed throughout our hymnology. When Christ was born, it was a silent birth. It was a mystical birth. It was a silent birth. In the hymnology, we hear that the Panagia did not experience the same pains of childbirth that a woman would typically experience. Instead, she experiences a much greater pain in many respects, which is the pain of watching her son die on the cross in silence. When Christ is baptized, there's no great show, there's not a paparazzi there taking pictures, photographing the event, making a big deal of what is happening. It's in silence. Even on Mount Tabor, what happens in silence. Even though the Father speaks, it's internal, still, an internal and still voice, as we hear from the prophet Isaiah, from the prophet Elijah, if I'm not mistaken. And the last thing, when Christ dies on the cross, he dies in silence. He gives up his spirit. He doesn't utter many words while on the cross. He doesn't make a public announcement or a speech. Silent. When Christ resurrects, he resurrects in silence, in the fact that nobody was present during his resurrection. And it's not a big show. Everything is done in silence. When Christ ascends, even now as he sits at the right hand of the Father, it's in silence in many respects, which is why many people are grieved and angry at God nowadays, because God, even with all the evil in the world, remains silent. St. Paisios says this. He says that what I see around the world would drive me crazy if I didn't know that God had the final say. While God may be silent now, know that he has the final say. As we head into 2021, it might be a good year to embrace a little bit of silence. Before responding to a question, important or not, it might be good to just embrace a little bit of silence. Silence and awe before our spouse, before our children, before our families, and before our friends. And especially silence before God, making that a priority every day of our lives. If just for 5 minutes at the beginning, and slowly, slowly it will increase. And you will see how much God in silence actually speaks. Amen.